as a result of this thing I was telling you about earlier, which was that I was under a mandate from the chairman of Gulf and Western to come up with a story that would be partly in the show scan process and partly not. And so that actually added a very specific requirement. And then I wanted to toy with the whole idea of the first person material. So the story came to my desk from somebody. Somebody submitted, I frankly can't remember. It was a producer friend of mine in New York. He said, I know this writer. He's got this story called the George Dunlap tapes, which wasn't really initially, I don't think, even a screenplay. It was just a story. It was almost a novel. And it was much longer than this movie. It was actually this movie and a sequel to this movie in a story. So we just decided to end the story at his breakthrough, finally seeing her tape. But the original story actually went on to this very far out sci-fi thing where virtually everybody gets turned into a tape and there's nobody left on the planet except a bunch of memories in memory banks. And I just felt that was another movie.
Wow, that's a big idea right there.
Yeah.
Just this part is just astonishing that you carried it out so far, and that to carry it to its logical conclusion so that everybody is reduced to memory. That's astonishing. I have another question. When you have your script and you're happy with it, then of course you start with trying to pull that through from the dream world into this world by getting artists to actually do renderings and things like that. Was there anybody in particular that you had in mind that you were used to using and working with?
Well, we already had quite a crew at my company, which was called Entertainment Effects Group, EEG. And my partner Richard Urisic, who had worked with me through 2001, Silent Running, and Blade Runner, and Close Encounters. And I asked him if he'd be the director of photography on this movie, and he accepted that he would. He has never been a DP on a movie since.
Really?
Really unusual, but an extremely gifted cinematographer who had worked under many other greats over his lifetime. I can't remember the rest of your question.
The art department. Well, I worked as assistant to Matt Urisic,
Right.
In the Matt department.
Right.
And those are some talented men.
Yeah, well, the largest, the hairiest part of making a movie is finding the cast and bringing the cast together and seeing if it's going to work and if it's going to gel. And it was one of my most horrible, not horrible, just a scary experience with the studio to find out that they actually had all kinds of agendas. That David Beagleman was friends with Natalie Wood and had been her agent previously and wanted her to make her come back in this movie. And so suddenly I got Natalie Wood. And I had chosen other actors that I won't mention. I hadn't originally chosen Christopher Walken, but his name came up and said, well, that could work. I always, from the very beginning, wanted Cliff Robertson. And I felt that some weird dynamic was going to happen because I felt he was the right spokesperson career with AT&T or something. After that, doing television commercials. And there was this whole dynamic that was also going on, which was that David Beagleman had been indicted for kiting checks, and one of the checks he had kited was for Cliff Robertson. And it was a big scandal. And David Beagleman had to do all kinds of restitution. And so it was a very big problem. David Beagleman was running MGM. That's why I'm saying his name. And I said, no, I want Cliff Robertson. So he said yes, the studio said yes, but I had to dance around all the time to try to keep David Beagleman from being in the same building as Cliff Robertson, or having lunch at a different time, or working around them, because they never wanted to see each other, they never wanted to come into contact. It was just like totally weird.
Wow.
And then Louise Fletcher, who I really admired because of Cuckoo's Nest, and I felt she would be the perfect chain-smoking lab lady, which she was. She was really fabulous to work with. And we had a really good time, particularly on her death scene. It was just the most amazing dramatic experience, just to see her work that out.
That was just a great scene. It's tragic that we lost Natalie Wood, but for for her to go out on any picture, this is quite the picture for her to go out on. This was, you got a wonderful performance out of everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Didn't you?
Thank you. Well, I guess one of the lessons I learned in this movie, if you ever get to make a movie, is that writing and directing and doing special effects and all the stuff we do as craftspeople, we all pretty much know how to do what we do. An unusual thing to find out that in fact, data is cheap. You can get a terabyte at Staples for $100. It's just like not a problem. Storage is cheap. Computers are inexpensive. They're ubiquitous. And even the cameras now are becoming very inexpensive. I just got back from NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters Convention in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago. Saw the latest cameras. And there's just stunning new 4K cameras that will go 60 or 120 frames a second that are inexpensive, easy to use, easy to get, easy to mount, easy to shoot with. The lenses are great. The 3D rigs are any rig you want, and I found that I could actually build 3D rigs myself out of pieces of aluminum, a Berkey modular system. And so I found out that it's actually making this breakthrough to get to what I had envisioned for Brainstorm is actually finally, now that we figured out all the, jumping through all the hoops. So it's going to be really fun to make the next movie to where I don't have to concentrate so much on the technical aspects of it. I can get back to the directing parts of it because this new process that we have been hoping for here that we're going to be working on next and that you'll see in UFOTOG on Sunday is extremely revealing. I mean, you can't hide, there's no place to hide. There's not a hair on your head that isn't going to be seen. So maybe some actors or actresses are not going to want to be photographed. That's fine, they can say no. We had that experience with ShowScan prior to making Brainstorm. And we showed Screen Actors Guild actresses and actors this process. And some of them said that's great, but some particularly younger women said, you're not ever aiming that camera at me.
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't want all their moles and stuff showing up.
I
So anyway, it's going to be interesting. That's why you'll see. I chose a particularly gnarly guy. He's a young guy, but I wanted him unshaven and not really particularly kempt, and his hair's all over the place. And Julia was spritzing him up with water all the time, making him look sweaty. And so it gives all kinds of detail that's just so striking when you see it finally, clearly for the first time. Yes.
That is wonderful. I remember when you were doing ShowScan, I saw all of the ShowScan movies, and the ones that I saw were not terribly long, but they were intense. They were very intense cinematic experiences. They had one where they were chasing a big ball around the beach,
Oh, yeah.
and then another, of course, there was roller coasters and things like that. But the one that stands out in my mind, we were sitting and watching, and he took a 24-year-old girl and put her about 8 inches away from your face. And you're watching this, and ShowScan was not like watching a movie at all. ShowScan was like looking out a window. And here's this girl right here, and she opens her eyes and she looks at you and says, hi. And everybody in the room, absolute pin drop silence. They were completely and utterly involved in this process. And if your new process is, of course, an improvement on that, I just can't wait to see it.
I'm eager for you to see it. I'm really proud of it. So I hope as many of you can come, and then we're going to have a whole talk about that because it's not going to be a talk about the past or what happened 30 years ago. It's going to be a talk about now and the future. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring it here and try it out here was to get the audience. What would you do with it if you had it? What kind of movies come to mind from your point of view now that you can see what it looks like? Because once we make this breakthrough, which is kind of like the breakthrough in this movie, is suddenly all kinds of things become possible. And we're thinking about music and dance and drama and opera and sports and action things that are in addition to the conventional movie stuff that you could put on a screen. So it'll be really interesting to see what you think of it. Yes?
I've seen this film many times before, toggling back between the widescreen for the first version than the regular framing. What was the reaction of the president there at Golden Western after it was over and you were able to show him how it would, because I've seen it many times on TV, on DVDs, and it doesn't have quite the impact like it does here. When we fly
Right.
What was the reaction?
Well, first of all, nobody was there anymore that had been there when we started. Regime change at studios is rampant and has been, and probably proves that all the old guys made bad decisions. So there was not tremendous force behind Brainstorm or a big marketing campaign or any love for the movie or passion for the movie at all. They just wanted it over with. It's really unbelievable. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, the studios made a huge shift, new crew coming in and so forth. Did they have, what was the new direction?
I couldn't see any new direction. The direction I saw was that they review cards and things and got a very high rating, and they just didn't want to, take me out to dinner or let's have a drink, let's celebrate or anything. It was just like brain dead. I don't know. Don't get me started about studio management. I hope it's better these days. It's a completely different team of people running the studio, so don't get it wrong. I'm just telling you my experience at that time with those people. Many of them are dead now. The culprits on the whole issue of getting the movie finished are long gone over. I'm just saying that I've got a lot of scars on me, psychological scars about how to get through that minefield, which is why I'm drawn to doing things independently, out of Hollywood, independent financing. I would like nothing better in my life to build my own theater, make my own movie, and take tickets from you. Yes?
It reminds me a little of the writings of Philip K. Dick, and I wondered if it meant anything to you while you're making this, or if there were any other science fiction.
How did you get what I had on my mind? I was so happy, just happy that we finally got it right. So that was really one of the best stories I have. Right now I still read science fiction, but I actually end up writing myself, because writing for this medium is just not like literature. It's not like screenplay structure normally. I'm trying to actually develop a new form of screenplay program so that I can actually interact with the script. So that it's not just a quick paragraph describing a scene and some dialogue. Because the movies I want to make are not about the dialogue, they're about what the visual is. So I need to make kind of a previs kind of script format that I'm sure is not going to be rocket science, but I work in a very visual way. And we're now entering this phase, which is, very well exemplified in the animation industry of pre-visualization and over and over and over. And Gravity was a really good example of that, of a movie actually being pre-vis. We had an interesting experience on Brainstorm because even before we started shooting the movie, there were management issues going on at the studio, and then they assigned me a executive producer, kind of watchdog guy. He was at I remember vividly a day when we had what's called a table reading. It was the first time that me and the cast got together on an empty stage, literally with a table and some chairs, to just read through the script. Each person reads their part. It's a very orderly initial process of everybody just getting familiar with what's going on. And that was immediately evoked reactions from the cast of saying, well, I love this thing. I'm here because I want to make this movie, but this particular line of dialogue, what's that all about? We're in a creative process here. So I had to call David Beagleman, the head of the studio. I said, your guy here is, I think, a little bit wacko. There's a little drug problem here, or something's going on. He's not interfacing with us in a creative way. And I won the day. And so it just became an etching away of everybody's passions as all these little stupid mayhems come up every day, trying to interfere with the creative process. I love making movies, and I love the fact that it's such a collaborative art form. And if you want to read a really interesting book, it's the book about Pixar by, what's his name, the head of Pixar?
Leslie.
No, it's not Lasseter, it's his partner. Ed Catmull. How do you corral a bunch of creative people and get them to interact in a positive and constructive way? And he's been talking about this on and off in various seminars for years, and he's really a brilliant spokesperson for how to create a creative environment amongst a group of people to where it's okay to say what you think without being criticized or derided or insulted or diminished in some way. And that everybody from the gardener to the president of the company has an opportunity to throw their 2 cents in. It's up to the crew, the creative crew, to kind of filter through a lot of really creative people who always have something to offer. And it's an amazing art form to be in when it's going okay. It doesn't always go okay. Yes, sir.
I was wondering if there would be a project between them and Brainstorm and start Back to the Future Ride as you aspirations for come to fruition.
8 passengers looking at the screen, and we found out our little simulator of the 30-foot dome with 1 projector was better. There was something about it that was just more intimate, more powerful. Everybody got a good view of the screen, and that gave birth to my idea for a thing called ride film, which was to miniaturize the entire thing and build a compact ride, which we then sold to the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas as one of the attractions. And that's when we shot. This was in about 1991. It was called the Secrets of the Luxor Pyramid. There were 3 attractions back to back inside the hotel. And it was a beginning, middle, and end, past, present, and future trilogy of stories that shared a common cast. And there was a story, over $300 million, and took IMAX public and brought IMAX into the mainstream of commercial filmmaking. And my intention was to be making the first films in IMAX 3D. That was my whole purpose in doing that whole thing, because we were going to transform IMAX from a technology company into a creative movie production company. That never happened. I found out later that I was just being used as a shill, and they didn't intend to do that at all, and so I just gracefully exited the scene. But that was a very busy time after Brainstorm, after Back to the Future Ride, Luxor, and then setting up shop in the Berkshires, and kind of starting this whole new style of life. And then that led to another idea which I developed at Paramount, which was called Magicam, with the whole idea of matting people, green screen, superimposing people into miniatures in real time. And I started developing this whole new technology for doing that with live action people into miniatures. That was my intention, and we actually made it work for the Book of Pooh. We shot 52 episodes of Book of Pooh, which is kind of a Disney storybook thing with Moonraku puppetry. But I took the technology to Hollywood. I had this big book, a 50-page book, and a demo film, and I went to all the heads of all the major studios in about 1993 or something. And I got absolute no callbacks. They were not interested in virtual sets or green screen or real-time live action pre-production or anything. And since that time, we've had Avatar, we've had all these other movies, including Gravity. Live action, what I call live action pre-visualization of shooting rehearsals, like the table reading we did with Natalie Wood and Chris Walken and everybody. I would now do in a synthetic set and actually let people block out their moves and say, well, what if this, what if that? Take about a week and shoot the whole movie as a previs. That's when you find out your script sucks. You don't find out until you're on the set with 150 people being bored that your dialogue is no good and you really didn't need that scene anyway, but that what you really should be shooting is the scene you didn't think of until it's too late. So previs is a way of debugging a movie very profoundly before you spend your big bucks on production. So I'm just trying to tell you that that's what's been going on, and we can do it in our backyard. Never go anywhere, never go on location, and we're going to be on something like Alpha Centauri 200 years in the future. That's my crazy vision. I think we have to wrap this up because we have to clean up the theater.
Doug, I think you're the right man for this, obviously, and you have the right ideas. I think you're speaking to the right group of people today. And I urge all of you to come back and see Doug's movie on Sunday. And please, come see all the others in between. We are up against a hard stop, so we have to sort of end right now. But thank you very much. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.